Let's give a warm welcome to Janelle. Janelle is a writer and editor and creative consultant based in New York City. And Janelle covers topics like style, culture, design, and art and entertainment. And she's been featured in publications like Vogue. So let's welcome Janelle. Janelle.
Some days are harder and it's okay. That's why we got friends and family. Gotta push through the dark times of light. You believe in the grass.
Take it away.
It takes a village to lift you up.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, George. Okay, it is so great to be here at the SHEIN Design X Summit and see the future of our industry sitting right here in the audience. This might be the chicest crowd that I've ever been in, so give yourselves a hand for coming in and really delivering it. Now, as a writer, I have been blessed to cover style, culture, and beauty from all angles, but honestly, my favorite part of the job is meeting young designers. I mean, it takes so much optimism, creativity, it takes grit, it takes, a lot to be a designer and to step into fashion at this time. So when you stumble on someone who has the total package, who really is destined, I think, to make it in this industry and has proven themselves, you just don't forget it. It's been almost a decade since I met LaQuan Smith at one of his early presentations, and in that time, he has exceeded every expectation. He's become one of American fashion's most influential designers. His clothes, you've seen his clothes, right? They are visually arresting, exquisitely crafted, and sexy as hell. You've seen them on Rihanna, on Kim Kardashian, on Cardi B, on Hailey Bieber. Honestly, I could just name any celebrity and they've worn one of LaQuan's looks. Now, he is the man that they look to when they're wanting to look their best. But his vision is really about allowing everyone to feel like they're a star. And if you're curious, if for some reason you haven't seen LaQuan's beautiful work, let's have a look at it. It is my pleasure to share the stage with LaQuan Smith.
Thank you.
And Mike, okay. All right. First of all, LaQuan always steps in looking like a model. It's a little unfair. Now, LaQuan, thank you. First of all, thank you for being here. And you and I are both from Queens. You are from St. Albans, and I am from right around the corner, Jamaica, Queens. And we know it takes a lot to go from where we started to the top of fashion.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the beginning of your journey. When you were, making clothes in your grandmother's house. How did you kind of envision your future as a designer?
Hi, everybody, first of all. I just want to say thank you. I'm really excited to be here. It's a lot to unpack. This journey it's been an extreme roller coaster. I guess I'll start by saying that I feel as though, fashion sort of chose me in a way. ever since I can remember, I've always been, illustrating. That's my natural born talent. I know how to sketch, I know how to draw. And so that was just something that I was initially doing in the very beginning. I thought, oh, maybe I would be a cartoonist, or maybe I would be, I don't really know. I don't think that fashion really was like it wasn't in my mindset in the very, very beginning stages, but it was at the age of 13 is when my grandmother, she bought me a sewing machine for Christmas. And after that, it was a wrap. I don't think that she really knew that she was laying down the foundation of, her grandson building a fashion empire. So at the age of 13 is when I learned how to sew. My grandmother taught me everything I knew about garment construction, pattern making, draping, everything from top to bottom. And so I enjoyed it, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and then it was sort of an aha moment, like, oh, I should be designing the clothes that I'm sketching. And so even everything down to how do I learn how to pattern make? I was making patterns out of newspapers, because I didn't have pattern paper. I didn't know that I had to go to the garment district and get pattern paper and all those supplies to basically do pattern making. It's sort of like a kid when they would take apart a car to put it back together again. I was cutting up some of my mom would give away clothes to the donation. I would cut up her skirts. I would cut up the clothes to just really understand the layout and the construction of how things were constructed. And so once I got the hang of it, I was just making clothes, I was making clothes for myself, I was making clothes for my friends, I was making clothes for my mom. I applied to art and design high school, so that's where I really flourished. Did anybody attend art and design?
Any art and design high school?
Love that.
Graduate? Yay, all right.
So that's sort of where I really flourished, because growing up in Jamaica, Queens, growing up in St. Albans, I was definitely weird. I was a weirdo. I was considered a weirdo. I was considered a faggot. I was considered all types of crazy things, and I really just felt, designing and creating was sort of that was my saving grace. That was something that it made me feel safe, it made me feel protected, and it was something that I had really focused on. So by the time I reached high school, I was with like-minded creatives, I was going to school and I would see boys and girls with blue hair and piercings, and I was like, yes, this is where I need to be, I just felt I felt at home. And even it's interesting today because even some of my peers that I went to art and design, everyone is just blossoming, in their own right. So, that's sort of the early on phase of sort of growing up in St. Albans. My mom definitely had a huge influence on my taste. My mom had me at a very young age. And so the foundation of how I was raised, I have my grandma, I have my grandpa, and I have my mom, and so, the journeys of going to church, the journeys of, we would get on the subway and she would take me to Manhattan. These are the things that was sort of just influencing me. New York is that's my birth, that's where I'm from. That's sort of the start of my inspiration, nightlife. It's just when I used to hit 42nd Street, lights, camera, action, it just gave me a rush. I knew that I wanted to be a part of something really great, and I wanted to contribute to, making women look beautiful because I'm just fascinated by women. I love people watching, and it's just that's just how I got started.
Absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about, building up your references, building up your, aesthetic and your perspective. The eye has to travel, right? What were some of your earliest influences?
Early influences, I love music, I love pop culture, I love movies, Boomerang, I love Grace Jones, I grew up listening to Little Kim, I love Destiny's Child, all those things, J-Lo, these are the things that I was surrounded by that I found glamorous, I found fab, and I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. So, I think everything from music choices to, music choices to movies to traveling, it shaped my taste in fashion. It really gave me a perspective on what my DNA is or what it was. I've always been into a sense of retro elegance, I love modernity. I love anything that's modern and sexy and cool. So, for me, it's growing up in New York was it was sort of shaping me into what it is that, like who I was going to become as a designer.
Absolutely. Now, obviously the road towards, your career has not been just a cakewalk, hasn't been easy. You experienced some early rejections, like, not getting into FIT and Parsons, which are, two of the usual sort of pathways towards a career in design. Tell me a little bit about how you handled that and how you grew from those experiences.
So after high school, I did apply to FIT and Parsons, but I was rejected. That's the gag. I was rejected, and I wasn't really smart about it. I didn't apply to like backup schools. I didn't, there wasn't a plan B. Like I just knew exactly what I wanted to do and exactly where I wanted to study. And because that didn't work out for me, that was a very low moment in my life. It was very devastating. I mean, I spent about 2 years just trying to quote unquote figure it out. And at the same time, like, I had all this talent. I was making all these clothes, making these, making things for myself. And, I had the pressure, like the real pressure from my family, like while all my friends was like, going away to college and everybody was having, going away parties. Like I'm sitting here like twiddling my thumbs, like, well, what am I gonna do? And my mom was very much like, like any mom would be, okay, Lay, well, why don't you go and, take a couple courses, take some business courses at community college or do this. And I was like, no, girl, like, I want to be, like, I want to be draping, like, I want to do this. I just had a vision. So while all trying to figure it out, I mean, of course, I worked retail jobs, and of course, I had a side hustle. I was making dresses for, women all around New York. It was just like, what's the trajectory? What are you doing? My family was like, what are you doing? They certainly supported me. They put me in art school, they did all the things, but it was really now like, what's the future looking like for you? And that was something that was just really unclear for me as far as like, how do I break into the business? What do I do? So it's just important for you guys to understand that this moment of failure kind of motivated me to then do it my own way, figure it out my own way. So at that point, I sort of used the method of like how, old school rappers would like sell CDs from their trunk. I was basically, I didn't have models, I didn't have a muse, so I was wearing my own stuff. Like I was wearing cat suits, I was wearing like, and it wasn't like, oh, this man is dressing up as a girl. It was more like, because my references were like Grace Jones and like David Bowie and like Lenny Kravitz, like I was pushing the boundaries, like I was certainly pushing the boundaries in a way where it was fab, it was very fab. And so I would like walk into these parties and I'd sneak into these parties that I was certainly not on the list for. And I would pretend like I was somebody, excuse me, do you know who I am? And people would just gag because I just looked so awesome. And the reaction from women would be like, oh my God, where did you get this from? I designed it. So what I was doing was I was like twirling around New York, going to these parties, making these, my first product you can say was these sort of like 3D leggings. And there was these gold metallic 3D leggings that I made. They took all of like maybe 25 minutes to make, and I was cranking them out like every day. I made about maybe 5 pair, maybe 4 to 5 pair every night. And I would have them on. But the thing was that like I couldn't, because my grandparents are like very religious, I had to like put these clothes in my backpack and say I'm going to work. But then I would like go to Starbucks and change into this full-on cat suits, and people would be like, wait, what? And it was bold, it was daring, but I kind of had a method to my madness. So when I would see like fab women in like the meatpacking district or like in the clubs, like I'd be like, oh my God, you're so fab, I'm so inspired by you, like here. And then people would be like, what are you giving me? And I'm like, girl, I'm giving you the look, get into it, And sometimes people would be like, no, I'm not interested. Or sometimes people would be like, is this guy unreal? Like, whoa. And so I was doing that for like a long time. And that's sort of the beauty of like New York. It's a melting pot. So now these leggings are like everywhere. They're everywhere. Because not only am I giving them out for free, but I'm giving them out for free. I'm also like, people are now discovering this. I'm charging, my little side hustle. And then long before you know it, I'm in this supermarket with my mom. Meanwhile, I don't have a real business. I don't have anything yet. I'm still like working retail jobs, and I'm interning at Black Book Magazine and all this stuff. And I was in the supermarket with my mom, and I opened up one of the tabloids, and it was Lady Gaga in my leggings. Yeah. And I was like, this is, and I like raced over, like, Mom, look at this. And she's like, that's nice. What, did you apply to so-and-so? Did you do this test? Did you apply to that school? And I don't know, for me it was like, things were just sort of unfolding in a way where like it gave me affirmation, it gave me confirmation that like I'm on the road to something greater, but I wasn't really getting the monetary value. You know, I didn't really know how to put it together like in a business format.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I can speak to in terms of like my first early product. And so even, and beyond that, you know, like personalities like Andre J was showing up in Paris, you know, to very exclusive, you know, Bergdorf Goodman parties. I mean, Linda Fargo and Jason Wu and all these designers that, you know, I wanted to be like, Alexander Wang, all these cool kids. Andre J is wearing LaQuan Smith in Paris. I mean, I don't know, something about reading that in fine black and white print gave me motivation. Like, this is great.
Absolutely.
Then next thing you know, Rihanna's wearing my catsuit in the Rude Boy video, and you know, so it's just these are all achievements that I'm making on my own accord. You know, no backing, no PR, no business plan, until finally someone said to me, you know, you want to do if you're going to do this right, you got to put out a collection.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, just doing these little one-off custom pieces here and there, it's like, if you want to do this the right way, you got to put out a line, put out a collection, let's sell the collection. So then that following year was sort of my moment where I sort of stopped partying, I sort of stopped doing what I was doing and really focused on building a collection. And building a collection, it takes a lot of money to do, which I didn't have. So just really the support that I had from, you know, my friends, the community in New York, my family, my friends. You know, I put together a very small presentation in 2010. Yep. And that's the year that really completely changed my life. Just to give you guys a timeline, I was 21 at the time. Yeah. And because I had all this like press happening, it's like, who's this kid, these leggings, this, that. New York Times, there's a journalist, Ruth Lafurla, she did a piece on me. She came to my house. And my grandmother was kind of clutching her pearls, like, who are all these people in my house? You know, photographers and cameras, because they were just uncovering, like, they couldn't believe that this young guy is making clothes in his grandmother's house, and it's all on celebrities. I just think people were just kind of like perplexed by that whole storyline. And so that was my atelier, that was my studio, that was my showroom, my room, like in my grandmother's basement. You know, that's kind of like, that's how I got started. And the New York Times article came out, and it was entitled "The Fashion Week Virgin." That's what it was called. And I showed at the Society of Illustrators on the Upper East Side, and someone tapped me on my shoulder. We're about to, you know, Showtime's about to start. And I mean, models, like my friends, you know, like I didn't have a budget, you know, I didn't have a budget to pay for models. So these were just like my friends, and everyone's just pitching in because I had a level of support. People were like, I believe in this kid. And so someone taps me on the shoulder and says to me, Mr. Smith, Andre Leon Talley has just entered the building. The late Andre Talley was a huge mentor to me, a great friend of mine, and he truly changed my life. Like, he really, I give him the credit for, you know, sort of exposing me to fashion, you know, and really introducing me and opening the doors for, you know, building an empire.
Absolutely. Now, you're someone who, you hustled. You put in the work to go out and make those connections, to go out and really promote yourself. What do you think are some lessons that you learned during that time that young designers can really use in order to get their name out there, in order to get, you know, the attention of people who can really make those things happen for them?
I mean, my response to that is, you know, I definitely was bold. I was fearless. Like, I didn't have anything to lose. I wasn't embarrassed about walking up to people, walking up to Linda Fargo, walking up to Fern Malice, who at the time was, the headliner of, New York Fashion Week at Bryant Park. Like, I wasn't afraid. I just kind of was like, the worst thing that anybody can say is no. Then keep it moving, because somebody else will give you an opportunity. This is also the time where, like, Instagram wasn't a thing, so like I think for me, like, networking was so imperative, getting my face out there, getting business cards, getting my work out there, shaking hands, getting the product out there, getting people to understand, I was very heavy in networking. And so, I mean, I still find that to be very essential, I mean, and how you do it in today's world when everything is just so, like, online, it's a little bit harder, I think, but I think when, in the MySpace era, like, that was my portfolio, like, that was my Instagram, like, I was putting clothes up on, on my MySpace and on my Facebook. I mean, so everything that I was doing was just sort of a portfolio of my work. So I think that, like, continuing to sort of have that mindset, getting your products out there, getting your clothes out there, the world is your oyster, and I think that people are, as long as you're asking questions and want to learn, I think that it's definitely a setup for, great success.
Amazing. Now, one of the things I really find incredible about your designs is that they attract powerful women. They attract people who have a sense of self and really, a true sense of style. What would you say are some of your favorite moments of, celebrities or even just, friends wearing your pieces?
Yeah, I've had a lot, y'all. Like, I've had a lot of moments. Just when I think it couldn't get any better, it got better. It got hotter. I mean, every designer wants to dress Beyonce. Let's just be clear, like, that's just a major accomplishment in itself. Dressing Beyonce, dressing Kim Kardashian and Gaga and Serena Williams. I mean, these are all incredible achievements, and I think that it says a lot as far as, like, who my woman is, like, I'm dressing so many different women, different body types, but the trajectory is still very sexy, and that's something that I'm all about. I'm not somebody who is designing for, like, my collection is not for the faint of heart, like, it's for women who want to be the center of attention. It's for the women who, they want to bring their sexy back, to wear LaQuan Smith is an experience. It's like the same way that, I talked about when I wore my designs and the reaction that I would get. Those are the same reactions that women get. It's storytelling, and it's conversational. And I think that that's one of the things that I think just sort of held me throughout my entire career, because it was really hard to get support from the fashion inside. It was hard to get support from editors or to get support from buyers, so I kind of was just, in a weird way, like, leaning in on celebrities. I was allowing celebrities to sort of dictate my future, if that makes any sense. They weren't introducing me as, like, women's wear designer. It was like celebrity designer to the stars. And it sort of pigeonholed me at one point, because then women would come up to me and say, do I have to be a celebrity to wear LaQuan? It's like, no, girl. Like, I'm building something that for every woman can, have a piece of LaQuan. So it took time to sort of, like, rebrand and redirect, what that looks like. And it took a lot of time, and it took a lot of growth as far as, me being a designer, building product categories. I'm just getting a better, for me, I think it's also, like, I was growing as a designer, and so I was growing even as a business, And just to interject on that part, like, I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but every creative, every designer needs a business partner. I don't care how you flip the script. Like, I've started doing it all on my own. I sold the clothes myself. I was delivering the clothes myself. I made the clothes myself until I met my amazing business partner, best friend, Jackie, who at the time, we were out one day, I remember, and Jackie, she's like, I'm from Queens. I was like, well, I'm from Queens too. And I was out wearing my full-on getup, and she goes, well, where are you going? I'm going home. And she goes, how are you getting home? And I go, I'm getting on the train. I take the E train straight to Jamaica. And she goes, you're not getting on the train looking like that. And she gave me a ride home, and we have been, we've been the best of friends ever since. And so I remember there was even a period in time where Jackie said to me, LaQuan, I want to help you, And so I think Jackie really just allowed me to sort of breathe a little bit. It allowed me to be a designer. You know, sometimes being a designer and to deal with the business stuff, it can be creatively stifling because you're trying to juggle everything. And so, you know, really having a partner, you need a balance. There has to be a balance.
Now, you're someone who always had a really strong point of view, but how do you feel that your work has evolved over time? Like, what is LaQuan Smith now versus LaQuan Smith when you were 21?
Well, as I said before, like, I think that for me, like, designing these like one-of-a-kind pieces, having a business where it was only custom-based, now women are coming to me for full-on outfits. They're going away on vacation and they want not just a hot, sexy dress, but they want a bodysuit. They want an outerwear piece. They want a cardigan. You know, it really, I think, I have evolved as a designer by building my product categories. Even if, you know, let's say outerwear is like 5% of my business, I don't care. I love a good outerwear. I love a good shearling. I love a good fur jacket. You know, it's really about building product categories so that it does sort of lend itself to be sort of a lifestyle brand, you know? I think that's sort of the way that I've expanded, because now it's exciting to see the way that women are shopping LaQuan Smith.
Now, your collections during Fashion Week, I feel like each season you really sort of raise the bar for yourself. Tell me a little bit about your most recent collection and, you know, how it reflects this current, you know, stage of your career.
Well, I just recently debuted my Fall Winter 23 collection at the Rainbow Room in New York in Rockefeller Center. Rainbow Room is just a very iconic place where all the upper echelon, the elites of New York would go back in the 30s, 1920s or something like that. It's just a very nostalgic, jazzy, sexy place. It's a staple, you know, and I think that everything that I do, everything that my brand represents is a sense of luxury and sensuality. And it was an experience. That's what it's like to come to a LaQuan Smith runway show or a LaQuan Smith after party. Like, people are leaving like, whoa, that was amazing. We had, you know, champagne and caviar, and, you know, of course I was watching episodes of Dynasty, and I was just like, these women are just so damn fab. Like, why is Alexis Carrington just waking up, you know, in a full-on chiffon silk, you know, drinking champagne? Like, it just really was, it inspired me. I mean, it inspired my, you know, my entire vision, my entire layout for the collection. I almost wish that we could show a video of it. And so, yeah, that was sort of the collection. I mean, I really wanted to just replicate, you know, sort of a nostalgic, retro glam. I want to return, you know, I sort of want fashion to sort of come back in a way. It seems as though I'm feeling in a white space. Like, I want to get back to dressing up again. You know, streetwear has had their moment. Now it's time to, like, turn it, you know, like, and so that's what it's about.
Now, when it comes to, I mean, you mentioned, you know, outerwear, even if it's a small percentage of your business, it's something that you want to include because it expands, you know, the portfolio. Tell me a little bit about a category maybe you haven't done or something that you would love to do next in terms of your design.
Ooh, I would love to do lingerie. Ooh. I would love to do lingerie. Believe it or not, lingerie is just so delicate. It's one of the most hardest things to construct in terms of manufacturing, because everything is just so pristine and delicate, but it takes a lot of time. I don't know, maybe a collaboration with Asian Provocateur or something. I just think that lingerie would just be like, it would make the most sense for me. That's definitely one product category that I would love to venture off into. And then also, I mean, of course, I love a good shoe. Like, I love boots, you know? Like, I want to definitely expand on, you know, shoes and eyewear and fragrances and, you know, and beauty. I mean, that is really, that's sort of the next phase. That's the next step. But I think it's important as designers and creatives to sort of, like, not take on too much at once, you know? Like, I'm a firm believer that, like, slow and steady wins the race. Like, grow graciously, like, understand, like, the ins and outs of what works and what doesn't. And I think that, you know, eventually throughout time, you know, you give people a little bit at once. You can't give them too much.
Now, when it comes to, you know, dressing people, obviously we went through the extensive list of people that you've already dressed. Is there anyone you haven't dressed yet who you would love to see in LaQuan Smith, who you feel would be a moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've dressed a lot of rock stars, but I think now it's been exciting to sort of like, be considered for Vanity Fair and Oscars and, actresses, Hollywood actors. Like, I think that that's sort of like the next phase, Like, I think that, like, people know me for sexy. Yes, it's cocktail. I definitely have been doing really great with, giving day wear offerings, but really pushing the envelope with evening. Like, what does LaQuan Smith evening look like? That's something that I'm really sort of excited about, pushing the envelope on. I think it's sort of like that's what I grew up on. I grew up watching VMAs and Oscars and this and that, and everyone's in a Versace moment and a Dolce & Gabbana. Like, that's what it's about, Like, and I think that it sets the precedent and it sets sort of like the fantasy of like, wow, I want to be that girl. So then you come in and you go to Saks and you buy your LaQuan Smith moment and you have that experience.
Now, tell me a little bit about, what do you want your customer to feel when they're wearing the LaQuan Smith? Like when they're having that LaQuan Smith moment, what do you want them to feel? What do you want them to sort of, be embracing about themselves when they're wearing your clothes?
Definitely confidence. I think confidence is definitely number one. The takeaway is sex appeal. It's femininity, it's sensuality, it's a feeling of luxury. Just feeling great. I think that. Excuse me. I think that it obviously starts from within, and then clothes is just that extra layer. It's just the icing on the cake. I think we all love luxury, and so I think that whether if it's a luxury handbag or a luxury cream that you put on your face, there's a takeaway, and I like that women have this feeling of empowerment when they wear my clothes. They feel empowered and they feel confident. They feel strong. They feel sexy. I mean, there's all these different versions of what women experience when wearing LaQuan. She walks into a room and she is the center of attention. Her outfit is a conversation starter. Some man is trying to pick her up. The girls are like, girl, where did you get that piece? That's the feeling. I mean, I think that's the takeaway.
Yeah, she is that girl.
She is definitely that girl.
Now, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned a little bit about, having difficulty breaking through into that sort of fashion mainstream. When did you feel like, okay, I've made it, I'm here, this is my moment?
I think I felt that way when I was picked up at my first department store, which was Saks Fifth Avenue, which was not that long ago, believe it or not. I once took a class at Macy's. It's called a retail math class. It was called Bragg Workshop Retail Math, because that's also essential to know as a designer, like where you're gonna sit in a store. Like what floor are you considered contemporary? Are you considered luxury? At what price point? Do you price out your clothing? I mean, this is all like vital information that you should know. I was definitely not interested in being sold at Macy's, but I just wanted to learn like what that looks like if I'm even interested in being in a department store, because that comes with another host of just pressure to deliver and manufacture and keeping quality control and delivery and all this stuff. But when I got picked up in Saks Fifth Avenue, I was screaming, I was shouting at the top of my lungs. I dragged my mom to Manhattan. I was, displayed in the window. I mean, my team, we were just all thoroughly excited. I mean, I think that was sort of the moment that made me feel like, wow, this is really happening. Because I think just to even understand like the struggles that I went through, like, yes, I'm dressing all these celebrities. Yes, I'm in all these magazines, but not because they're writing up about like what's LaQuan's vision. They're only writing me up. They're only writing about LaQuan Smith is because I'm being credited for what these superstars are wearing. There's a difference. It wasn't like people are saying, let's do a 5-page spread on LaQuan and just tap into his aura. Let's get into LaQuan's world. It was like, I was getting write-ups because I was dressing Kim Kardashian, and so. And that's fine too. I was still using those things to my advantage, but there was a disconnect. It's like, how am I dressing celebrities? How am I in magazines? How am I everywhere, but I'm not sold in any stores? And then when I would go to Vogue and I would do desk sides with editors, the first question they would ask me, what stores are you sold in? It was like crickets. I couldn't tell you. I had a few, very, very small boutiques around the city, around the world, but it wasn't significant enough. It wasn't, the prestige of being in these institutions like Saks Fifth Avenue and Bergdorf Goodman and Nordstrom's. I mean, that is sort of like, it's just another layer of success, and it's just like, it's an accolade that I think opens up another portal for, for you as a designer, for people to take you seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, you're bringing up a lot of great points about things that I think young designers really need to know before sort of like, putting their collections forward. Are there things that, are there other things that we haven't sort of touched on that you feel young designers should study or look into or address before they, start on the journey of really sort of promoting their collections?
Yeah, I mean, I think just kind of, it's not everyone's dream to be in a department store. Some people are okay with just having a custom business. Some people might just want to stick to bridal. Some people might just want to only design for celebrities. I mean, I think it's really important to understand, like, where you want to be placed in fashion, Like, do you want to be on a more contemporary, like, $275, $300 dress point, or do you want to be in more of a luxury, $1,500, like, you just got to understand, like, where you want to be placed in the market. And then once you understand where you want to be placed in the market, then you figure out who your competitors are. You figure out where, if I'm going to be sold in a store, what designers will my clothes sit next to? Figure out the brand DNA, figure out what the ethos of your brand means. What does it represent? What does it mean if a woman wears your item or your piece? What does that take away? Where does she live? What does she smell like? How old is she? Does she have kids? What kind of car she's driving? Where is she traveling to? These are all the things that I think helps a designer really put into perspective, like, who their target audience is, what they're designing for, who they're designing for. I mean, these are all very, very, like, important facts to know about, who, your customer base, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Now, I feel one thing that I really love about you, I feel like you absolutely know who your audience is. Is there anyone, or is there anything that you've learned by listening to your audience? Any sort of feedback you've received, or, direction that you've taken from the people who are, buying your clothes or following you on social, or really sort of paying attention to what you're doing?
Yeah, I think for me, sometimes I get a little bit sad when women say, like, they'll be like, when I used to have the body, or, when I lose weight, I'll wear LaQuan, or, I don't know. I want LaQuan to be for everybody. And so those are sort of the takeaways that I sort of learn, is that, like, the reality is that, like, no one is perfect. We all are working on our physical form. And there are certainly key elements in my design aesthetics that allows something for everybody, right? So, like, a woman never loses weight on her shoulders, so then maybe it's about an off-the-shoulder moment, you know what I mean? Like, some people love showing off their legs. Some people love showing off their décolletage. Some people love showing their back. Some people love, it's so many different areas of the body that it really is about where does she feel the most confident, And so that really, that really does allow me to expand creatively and think about different ways, think about the body, think about different cuts, different silhouettes that could make any woman, whether she's, 25 or 50, feel the same exact way, feel just as confident, just as sexy, just as whatever, Like, that's sort of like my takeaway when I listen to women talk about what they aspire to look like, or what they wish they, like, I always just think about my mom, and where she's at in her stage in life. And I think about my girlfriends. I mean, it's for me, it's like, I love people watching. I love listening to women. I love watching the way that women just get dressed, and, the offerings. Some women are more into blazers, and, more conservative. I mean, and I love a good blazer. I mean, I did about like 15 blazers this collection. I was like in the studio, like, why do we have so many damn blazers? Because I was just like blazer obsessed, like blazers, lapel, satin, this, that. But then, like, it got really exciting and fun to build the collection. It got exciting to do the style out, like put a blazer on top of the bralette with the evening skirt, put a blazer on top of the catsuit. It just made everything like evolve and sophisticated, but still sexy. And that's sort of the evolution of how you you grow. It's just offering new products and pushing it,
Now, what's your favorite part of the design process now? Is it still sketching, or is it that style up period? Is it, working on the fabrication? Like, what is the part that really gets you excited right now?
I think for me, like I used to just sketch and then I would try to find the fabrics to match the sketch, but nah. Now I just go to Paris, I go to Premier Vision, there's a trade show which I encourage all of you guys to go check out. Anybody who's really into fabrics and textile, like everything from leather, fur, pony hair, like denim. I mean, Premier Vision is like, it's your world, everything from garments, top, bottom, like, custom buttons, zippers, like it's a 3-day, it's a 3-day trade show, and even still, when you experience it, you leave like I still haven't seen it all.
It's immersion.
Yeah, and so for me, like I get excited when I meet new mills from Italy or Japan. I'm really into the textile world. I love fabric. I love fabrications, and I think that it really tells a story within itself. So when I start with the fabric is when I then start developing my sketching, and I start really going to that process. And then it can be really frustrating too, because then the vision sort of changes. It goes from sketch to to now like first samples, and it might not come out the best. It's all about fabric manipulation and how things are sort of blossoming in the way that you see fit, and it's exciting in the same sense, because it's like like a complete disaster will happen, but it's like, oh, this is actually kind of bomb, and then it turns you into another direction. And then, of course, like working with like legendary stylists. This past season, I worked with Patty Wilson, like legendary. I've watched Patty since a very, very early age. I would look at all of her editorials in W magazine and all her work with Stephen Klein. Like I would put up these like editorials on my wall and say like, one day, like I want to work with these people. So it's just like a pinch me moment that now everything is sort of coming into fruition. But even, styling the collection, and like, I'm not a stylist, right? Like I know how to make a good luxury garment. Like I know how to make a good quality piece, but to put it together is like, that's just not my lane. That's sort of where it's like where the collaboration starts to come in, having someone who can help me build that vision and tell the storyline.
Now, one of the things that I think that you really value is, of course, collaboration. Now, what advice would you give to young designers about building that creative team around themselves, surrounding themselves with the people who are really going to help elevate the work that they're doing?
Yeah, you definitely need to surround yourself with people that believe in you. That's number one. Surround yourself with people that are excited about what you're doing. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. It's all for the better. I think that like just having even it was hard for me to like build my team, like because I was so used to doing everything myself, it was so hard to let go of a lot of responsibility. You got to know how to trust. Everything is a trial and error period. So if it doesn't work out, that's fine, move on. But there's always people out there that are just more than willing to just help. And when it comes down to collaborations, I mean, I'm very particular with collaborations. It's important that we share the same values as a brand. It's important that the trajectory of sort of like the storytelling of what we're promoting, we just have to be aligned.
Now, you mentioned that when people first started writing about you, they were really focused on the celebrities. They were focused on so-and-so wears what. But now I think the tables have turned. I think people are very interested in you. Now, what has it been like to sort of step into that role? I feel like it's very different than the day-to-day of being a designer, but to have people also interested in you as a person.
Yeah, that's a great question, Janelle, because I'm always, believe it or not, Guy, I'm really shy. Like, my palms are sweaty. Like, I was actually nervous coming up here. Like, I'm so used to just, like, letting the work speak for itself. And I sat with that for a long time. But the reality is that, like, I am cool, and I do have a great personality, and people do want to get to know me. So it's been a great journey just building relationships with so many different people. I mean, I also think that that's a part of, like, evolving, as a designer, as a brand too. Like, yes, the work is great, but like having that one-on-one, like that face-to-face, taking someone out for dinner, asking for a piece of advice, getting consultation from somebody. I mean, it goes a long way. I think relationships and friendships are really, really valuable thing in this industry, you know? And the way that I like to think about it is like before even asking for money or asking for an opportunity, I think the friendship is really like the best takeaway, you know what I mean? Because that's just gonna naturally, you know, they're gonna be like, oh, I was thinking about you, you know, for this project, you know, it's naturally gonna happen. I think it's really about building friendships and building relationships first.
Now, you mentioned that being with your last collection, you were obsessed with blazers. What are you obsessed with right now?
I don't want to give it away because I'm working on the collection right now. I've just been obsessed with futurism right now. But 1960s futurism, like Pierre Cardin and Barbarella, like just outer spacey kind of cool stuff. That's kind of where my head's at right now. But I mean, like, how do you bring that into like reality? That's what we're still trying to figure out. But I mean, I love watching like just getting lost in the sauce on YouTube, going down all these weird old videos, and just, I mean, anything can spark your memory. Even like sometimes like my best friend, he like loves Lil' Kim and Biggie, and sometimes like he'll send me like references on Instagram. And it's like, some of these music videos go off, you know what I mean? Like the production, indeed. Like Hype Williams and like lighting and production. I mean, all these things are just so inspiring to me. You know, I think that inspiration, you gotta just catch it. That's sort of also too like the frustrating part in being a designer. Like you have to design on a schedule. Like now it's like you have 6 months to produce a collection, and it's sort of like the pressure it's insane, you know, it's time consuming, and you're constantly trying to like fetch for like, what's the new idea, what's that new moment, what's the new vision, but it's gonna hit you sooner than later.
Now, where would you suggest, you know, young designers go when they need inspiration? As you mentioned, the schedule for designers is crazy. You constantly have to like recharge and find yourself and really sort of like explore and dig deep. What advice would you give to young designers who are, you know, putting together their own collections when they need to get inspiration? Where should they go?
I mean, you can go to, you know, take a trip. Trip is always nice. Go to the museums. You know, the Met is always beautiful. You know, if you're not a member at the Met, sign up. It's always just nice just to go, you know, and just really like dive deep into the history of things. Obviously, the New York Public Library, you know, it's just. The library's great. I mean, I think that like it just expose yourself to as much as you can, you know? Like I said, take a trip, watch some movies, get into it. Like go back in time. You know, pull up old references, you know? That's sort of how I do things.
Okay, LaQuan, we're almost at time, but I would love to know, you know, when, obviously your pieces, have they made it to Met, made it to the museum? What do you want people to look back and remember about LaQuan Smith's work?
I don't know. I think that I mean, when I'm someday gone, I want LaQuan Smith to sort of have the essence of desirability and femininity. You know, the way that like every woman like loves a Coco Chanel handbag, you know, it's like the timeless piece, you know, like I always want to have this. And then also like being a black man, like making a staple, putting my mark from American luxury perspective as a black man. I mean, that's so important to me because as I grew up, like I didn't see that, I didn't witness that. So I think that also too, like just my journey and like the things that I've done, it really just opens up a bigger portal for like other designers of color to be able to be in that space too.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the real triumphs of this moment, you know, opening the door for that next generation so that their journey is going to be a little smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, LaQuan, thank you
so
guys so much.
Thank you.